What a difference 20 years makes. Now we're talking the age difference between the guitars or Chris and I. Stick around and find out.
Hey, you're watching Alamo Music TV. My name's Chris McKee.
And I'm Cooper Greenberg.
We're here with Alamo Music Center in San Antonio, Texas. You can find us online at alamomusic.com. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, and like our videos. If you'd like to support the channel, visit our Teespring store linked below for our custom designed t-shirts. I really think it's more like 15 years.
Something like that.
You keep trying to make me older. Like today, you mistook me for 50 earlier.
I think it's just something going on, dude. Something's in there.
It's something's in my hair. It's not there. That's the problem. Yeah. Anyways, I lost my hair when I was 20. I never needed to get carded for anything after that. I'm just telling you like it is. So anyways, so today we are talking about a 20-year difference between Les Pauls. Mm-hmm. Gibson Les Pauls. We recently went to the Guitarlington show, picked up this great 2001 Les Paul Standard Plus, and we figured, hey, let's check out. This is exactly a 20-year difference with this 2021 Gibson Les Paul Standard 60s model. How much has changed? How much is the same? How do they play different? How do they sound different, and so forth?
Yeah, you know, this was, full disclosure, the first guitar that Chris purchased at the Guitarlington show. It seemed like we just got our stuff all set up, and Chris walks up with a case. I'm like, dude, what's going on here? And then he pulled this out, and I was like, all right, man, I understand.
Beautiful top, beautiful top.
That's a very cool top.
There's a difference right there. Yeah,
top grade.
Look how much more flame there is on that.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Well, the Plus, you know, you got to expect.
Well, okay, so we'll get back to that in a little bit, but let's talk about kind of what is the same, what's different. Obviously, they're both Les Pauls. Mm-hmm. This one has a pickguard on it.
This one does
not.
not.
That one does not have a pickguard on it. These are top hats, and since it's the 60s one, they're the ones with the little silver tops on the top hats.
Yeah, and what are these called?
Those are speed knobs.
I knew that. Dude.
Which, was, to me, on every Les Paul through the 90s and the early aughts.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so the thing is, we got to talk about this. Came from a time where there was not the original collection and modern collection.
Yeah.
So this is just a Les Paul standard, and it's Plus. But here we have the standard 60s, which has, you know, it's differentiated a little bit from the 50s. This kind of has, do you think this one leans more towards the 60s vibe, or where do you think this would fall between modern and original?
I think, generally speaking, most Les Pauls tend to fall in the 60s kind of specs. And I say that in regards to a Les Paul's a Les Paul, but the necks are thinner in the 60s. And at some point, they just kind of said, you know what, that's a better route to take. Let's find some happy medium in the mid 60s models, and that's kind of the neck shape. Now, they recently did the Custom Shop reissue anniversary of the 60s last year, and there were three kind of iterations of that with different finishes. And the early models had a thicker neck, and then thinner, and then thinnest. Yeah. And I think there's been consensus that middle part of 60 was probably ideal. And most Les Pauls, modern Les Pauls, have kind of followed that convention.
Yeah, I love those guitars. This one, I would have guessed, if I didn't know it was 2001, I would have guessed this was a couple years old, maybe just like a custom shop. I mean, it's been kept in such great condition, and you know, frets look really good on it. It plays really nicely, and the pickups are a little different between these two.
Yeah, so these are the 490s, so 490R, 490T, that's rhythm treble, basically. These are 61RT for rhythm treble. So these are 61 pickups, which are designed to be half-style humbuckers, similar to what they were doing in the 60s. The 490Rs have been on Les Pauls for a long time. There's custom shops that still have those pickups on there. And yeah, they're a great kind of evolution of the PAF design. Yeah. You know, they're creamy. They've got a good bit of bark to them when you want them overdriven. They sound great clean. So it's really, the thing that tips me off on this is the knobs, honestly. And it's one of those things where knobs can be changed, but you know, we confirmed it with the serial number, the date on it. But yeah, those knobs, those are always reminiscent of that particular time. I have a friend who has a guitar very similar to that, and it was, I always told him, if you're ever going to sell it, please call me, because he let me use it once when we were playing, a gig, and I was just like, that's such an incredible sounding and playing guitar. So really fantastic. One of the things that hit me though when we bought it was, I was like, man, this is really heavy. No weight relief.
Yeah.
You know, it seemed really heavy. So you had it weighed.
Yeah. I ran down to the warehouse and weighed them. This weighs in at 10 pounds 1 ounce.
And this weighs in at
9 pounds 9 ounces.
So basically, almost the same weight.
It's pretty close. If you're one of the guys that come in here looking for a light guitar, neither of these will probably be your bag. But if you're looking for a guitar that sounds good and looks good, both of these could probably be your bag. So,
yeah, spoiler, I sat in here as Cooper played these, and it's that Spinal Tap moment of like, listen to that sustain. You can't hear anything. Well, but if it was playing right now, it would just sustain forever. You know what? Don't look at it. Don't look at it. That's how, I mean, both of these guitars sustained a lot, but you particularly liked this one.
I like this one a lot. I think we had the amp at the same exact settings, both guitars like all on 10 for the tone and volume, and they did sound different to me, like pretty substantially different. This one had a little more output, a little more punch, and the sustain felt like if I didn't do something else, like it would have lasted even longer. And I don't know if that has to do more with the humbuckers, you know, if it's just breathing, you know, if it's just aged nicely. Obviously the owner or owners of this guitar have taken very good care of it. Mm-hmm. But I'm a big fan of what Gibson has done in the original collection with the 50s and 60s. And so usually I would use this guitar to compare as like a high-end, this is an amazing guitar, up against maybe studio or tribute models. It's nice to have what I think to be a substantial step up in tone and also the top, you know.
And these were more expensive at the time. You know, it's one of those things, if you follow what happens at companies as they develop different products and the marketing changes and the price points change. Years ago, Gibson's just kind of kept getting more expensive. And then when they kind of, you know, redid everything and split it, then the pricing kind of came down on them.
Yeah.
And so these are now more affordable than like a standard was even 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Before they split the original and the modern collection. But yeah, I mean, I think part of that too is we've noticed the difference on the top. Here's a fun exercise to kind of put myself back in the mindset of what was going on. And I was shopping guitars back in 2001, but you know, it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Their lineup was dramatically different. So here's a fun exercise. Go in the Wayback Machine on the internet and punch in Gibson's website and go back 20 years. And these actually they were not available at the beginning of 2001. They came out toward the tail end of the year, so I think they got introduced during the Summer NAMM show. But the Les Paul Standard didn't have any flame, really. I mean, the pictures that were available on their website, there just was none. Yeah. So the Plus tops were this substantial upgrade with really beautifully flamed tops that were available. And yeah, a bit of a spec bump and a price upgrade, but just absolutely killer guitars that were available. And they were available for a number of years. And then they started doing stuff where Plus meant other stuff, like changes to the controls in the cavity and, you know, blow switches and all that kind of stuff. But what I love about this is it features a back to the basics Les Paul.
Yeah.
You know, and it's done right. In recent years, they got rid of the binding covering on the frets at one point, then they went back to having the binding covering on the frets because it's traditional. And so there's been all of this stuff, but I fondly remember those early guitars. And it sounds incredible. So to your point, did it breathe or something? I don't know. Let's listen to it. We'll debate it on the other side. So check it out. So, which one did you think sounded better? I prefer that one.
Yeah.
Listening to you play, I was just like, man,
Yeah.
sounds awesome.
I've wanted a nice Les Paul standard for a while. I would be very happy to own this one, any day up against something new that's come out. Luckily, the quality of all the Gibson standard stuff has been great, and we've seen and sold every single one that we've gotten. There's a shortage, obviously. People always want these guitars. They're always going to want a nice classic Les Paul. This one holds its own against anything brand new. And it looks really special. It sounds just exactly how Chris did say that's a Les Paul right after the first demo. So
Yeah.
That's all you need to know.
It's a Les Paul, and it's even more Paul. But so to the point of why does it sound better? I think because I don't think it's a construction issue. These are back to kind of that original design. There's no weight relief going on. The construction of these guitars is very, very similar. They have the same finishes and everything. But let's talk about finish first of all. They're both nitrocellulose finish. One of the benefits of that is that over time it kind of sinks into the wood. Mm-hmm. It moves more with the wood. It allows the wood to breathe because the thing with nitro is it's always curing.
Yeah.
It never stops. That's why it will react to things. Don't spray yourself with mosquito spray and then hold your Les Paul. You'll screw up the finish. But I think that benefits the guitar over time. So just like we know with acoustic guitars, it's more obvious. Over time, the wood ages and it opens up and it becomes lighter and more resonant and all of that. That happens with electric guitars too. Mm-hmm. And it's less noticeable, but it is noticeable.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the things that we're experiencing with this guitar, maybe.
Yeah.
Because I've played other guitars with the 490s, and they're great, but this guitar sounds a little special, so.
Yeah, for sure.
It's because the top's flamey. That's what it is.
It's more fire.
It's just psychological.
Yeah, it's a torrified top.
It's a torrified top. We set it on fire. So very cool guitar. I loved this this comparison. Anything else you come away with after this 20-year gap between the Les Pauls?
It's weird to think in a very minor way that a guitar from the early 2000s is some sort of
20
vintage.
years old?
Yeah.
Yeah, because the 90s were 10 years ago, weren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
That's how I feel.
But don't, if you see something on Reverb, if you see something in our store, on our website that's in that range, don't turn your nose up at it because there's some gems. There's a lot of really good guitars that were made at that time, and this is a really good example of that. You know?
There were tons of guitars.
Yeah.
For me, I'm an 80s, 90s kid, right? So I'm graduating high school in the late 90s. And my good friend, Pete Oliva, PJ, we called him in high school. He's an amazing guitar player. And I used to be so jealous. He had a Les Paul studio with gold hardware that was awesome. There were a lot of really cool guitars that were kind of being produced at the time that are now 25-year-old guitars. So
Yeah.
pretty cool things. What we're doing is just making those values go up and up and up.
Yeah,
We
you
should
just
be
got to keep
quiet.
your eyes open. Yeah.
We
they
should
sell.
buy them all, then release this video.
Exactly.
That's how
That's a
we'll
good
do it.
call.
So tell us your experience with a Les Paul, maybe from the early aughts, from the 90s, the 80s. We all kind of know about the 70s Les Pauls. Saw a lot of those at Guitarlington too. The ones that weigh more than a black hole, the greatest density ever. But they're all very, very cool. So tell us your experience about the Les Pauls. Did you own one? Do you still own one? Tell us all about it. We'd love to hear your story. And I think one of the biggest takeaways too after 20 years is there's some things that have changed, but there's a whole lot that's the same. And that's because when you have a winning formula, you try not to mess with it too much.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's my take on it. At the end of the day, the best guitar in the world is an older Les Paul that really sings.
That's true.
So if you're new to the channel, what should they do, Cooper?
You got to subscribe to the channel, and then you got to turn your notifications on so you know when the videos are coming out. You know what I'm saying?
Give it a thumbs up.
You just got to give it a little like on that one.
Yeah, I can't even do it.
It's all good.
All right. So yeah, definitely do all those things that he said. If you want to check us out on Patreon, there's a link in the description to tell you all about that. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.